Hey guys, welcome to another episode of InvoTalks. InvoTalks is powered by InvoZone, the software and web app development company with offices around the globe. We have two other verticals, Invo Games and Invo Blocks, which are associated with blockchain development, and Invo Games is associated with game development. And today this episode is going to be so much interesting because we are going to talk about AutoGPT, which is next big thing after ChatGPT 4. And to know more about what AutoGPT is going to change, how it is going to disrupt the industry more, I have Zachary Brown with me. He has 8 years of experience in machine learning and AI. He is currently machine learning engineering lead at Kensho. So, hi Zach, how are you?
I'm well. Thanks for having me on today.
So, how's everything? Let's start with your basic introduction, Zach. How did you jump into the field of AI, and tell us about yourself?
Yeah. So my background is actually in computational physics. So I got my PhD in computational physics from the College of William and Mary here in Virginia in 2014, and pretty quickly pivoted out of computational physics and into machine learning around 2014, 2015. So it was a very, very exciting field, a really burgeoning field, given all the recent developments in neural nets and things like that. And it was super awesome to kind of have that as a field to jump into. So I've been working developing complex ML systems, both backend systems and customer-facing ML systems for the past 8 years, and it's been super fun.
That's exciting. So tell me, you are associated with the company Kensho. What Kensho Technology is doing right now?
Yeah, so Kensho Technologies is a really, really cool company. We are effectively the innovation hub for the broader enterprise S&P Global. So they purchased Kensho, I believe, in 2016 or around about that time. And since then, they've really been tapping into Kensho's ability to kind of transform and innovate with access to data, and providing Kensho access to S&P's data to really just drive a whole bunch of innovation internally with S&P. And more recently, we've started to externalize some of our products. So we provide a whole bunch of value along a whole bunch of different use cases and directions internally for S&P. And it's kind of a no-brainer to start to identify external use cases where we can offer those same types of products and drive value for companies other than S&P. So it's a really great company to work for. We're small. I think that we have 90 people, but we have access to kind of unthinkable data assets that I haven't had access to anywhere else. So it's a really, really cool company to work for, and we offer a host of products. So right now we offer products ranging from speech recognition, machine learning technologies, to classification, to entity recognition, to record linking, and also document extraction. So we kind of cover a wide breadth of different types of machine learning use cases. And we're really excited about all of this new large language model stuff that's really popping up and becoming really, really popular these days.
Yeah, you're completely right. The ChatGPT for the AutoGPT now. I guess in past week, like how it was trending on the Twitter all around. If I look back in the past year, I wouldn't say AI is going to be that big of a thing, because we had blockchain, we had metaverse. Those things are also big right now. But how AI has come into the scenario, that's kind of amazing. So I want to know in your area where you are located. How many companies, are comfortable with, automation and everything? Because right now we also have kind of scenarios where people are worried about losing their jobs.
Yeah, I think so. Over my career, I've seen lots of swells of new technologies pop up that drive this fear of making certain jobs obsolete. So for a while, robotic process automation was going to be the job killer. And you can do a lot with it. It can make a lot of jobs and workflows more efficient, but I don't think that it can fully replace humans. I think that AI has come a very, very long way. but I see it as supplementing human workflows as opposed to replacing them. Like at the end of the day, in a lot of cases, you're usually going to want somebody to be making a final decision about any really high risk things that are happening. So I'm heartened by the complementarity of things like ChatGPT and GPT-4 and all of kind of the latest developments. And I think that it's only going to kind of accelerate content production, workflows, and we just need to figure out how we can best tap into that, but also keep things on, like keep guardrails in place. So that's why I think that humans aren't going to go away for any time in the near future, because we really need to be designing the right systems and checks and balances for these complex AI systems.
I completely agree. These things are there to, supplement us, or I would say increase the magnitude of our productivity. That's kind of amazing, because I think the mundane tasks and the daily tasks we are doing, like which take a lot of time and sometimes turn out to be boring for us, can be controlled by AI. But like you said, we are not at that stage where, humans can be replaceable. And which reminds me that I was reading about the AI and ChatGPT and all of that stuff, because I don't have, frankly, a technical background, but I was reading about some interesting facts, and I came to know that somewhere in the world, I guess in Korea or China, there is a company who has made AI assistant as its CEO. Do you think that on those upper levels of position, I know for decision making and stuff, we are not replaceable, but AI. But I was hearing some different point of views, and they were saying like we can be replaceable, but there can be a time duration, like with time we can be replaceable. So how much time do you think we as humans have to not to be get replaced?
Yeah, I think I don't think that humans, like having a human in an actual particular role like CEO, will ever be fully replaceable, just because there's a lot of additional, there's a very important human element to us, especially a lot of those upper level roles. I saw a lot of chatter suggesting that that maybe companies should look to replace their CEOs with ChatGPT when it first kind of started making a big splash. If you look at like the hard evidence, yeah, maybe you could train or tune a model in the direction of sounding a lot like a CEO, but at the end of the day, these models' ability to really navigate complex logical trees and decisions, it eventually breaks down, especially for very complex things like running a company. So I could maybe see if you took an individual role, maybe mid-level, maybe even very senior level roles, and identified some particular workflows where there is a lot of simple decision making happening over and over again. I could see optimizing particular parts of roles that way, but I don't think that you're ever going to full stop replace a CEO, because at the end of the day, if you think about it, these models have been trained on what's currently available on the internet, or what's currently available to the companies that are training them from their own internal data sources. And in reality, they can really only effectively parrot back the information that they've already seen. So it seems like there are interesting, novel, emergent capabilities that come from that ability, but at the end of the day, they're not really generating anything that hasn't been produced anywhere before, for the most part. So they're not going to be able to come up with radical ideas as a CEO, or I think like truly innovate. So that we need the human spark for.
I completely agree. Because humans are going to be there, because this is something created by humans.
Yes.
So coming towards the exciting part of my podcast, which I'm really excited about, is AutoGPT. So for our audience, I want to know from your experience, from your knowledge, because you're an awesome guy in machine learning and AI, what is AutoGPT and why does it matter?
So ChatGPT and these large language models are able to they're able to hold up a conversational flow fairly well, but they can occasionally get distracted, and it happens in the conversation happens in kind of a back and forth manner. So you kind of need some like real time interaction. So what AutoGPT effectively tries to do is say, well, I just want to define my task and let the model kind of figure out how to get it done, and then go about actually getting it done. So AutoGPT is really a framework built on top of the foundational GPT models that orchestrates task management and execution. So it's really, really interesting as a concept, and I generally see a lot of the more cutting edge applications of GPT kind of moving in this direction, where you have a generative agent that can carry out certain tasks on your behalf, but is ultimately like bound by the constraints of being powered by GPT.
Mm. Interesting. Like it utilizes the capability of both 3.5 and 4, but and makes the work more efficient. So, continuing from that, how exactly does AutoGPT work, and what are the technical mechanisms? If you can explain it in a little detail for our audience.
Yeah, certainly. So for anybody that's played around with any of the GPT-based models, you basically interact with them by typing out some text, right? And they understand a whole bunch of different types of commands. And depending on what text you type out for the task that you want it to do, and also the context that it provides, or that you provide to it, you can make it aware of different things that it's able to do. So what AutoGPT does is it stands up what it calls a GPT agent, or a generative agent, and it gives it, each agent, all of the context that it needs to say, this is how you access the internet, this is how you save files, this is how you do all of these various tasks, and then it gives it a prompt saying, this is what I want you to do. For your answer, provide the same context that you had before, as well as generate the next step in the process. So that last key piece there is really the interesting bit that makes it an auto-regressive generative agent. So that means that it's continually generating the next step for itself. So it's a clever way to just like make this like unit of agent that you give it a task, and it will figure out kind of how to get to the end of the task by generating the next step each time. And then there's kind of one level up from that. So you can think of, I have an agent that I want to do this bit of the task, but there's usually like a lot of different tasks associated with a complex workflow. So AutoGPT also has some idea of an agent manager. So you can take a very complex task, say to the agent manager, I want to break this down into sub pieces, and then I'm going to use a different agent to execute sub pieces that don't need to be executed in order. And then I can bring all the results back together. So this is actually a really common trend in a lot of the startups that you see popping up that are using something like GPT under the hood. They're really stringing together a whole bunch of different usage modes for GPT and putting that on the back end of a product. And what AutoGPT is saying is like, let's just say what we want to do in plain text and just let GPT kind of like run itself. So it's a very, very interesting concept, and one that I'm fairly excited about. I will say, if you look at the disclaimers on the AutoGPT project site, they are very, very clear that you need to be cautious and wary of usage costs, because every time one of these agents calls out to GPT, you may have to pay for that. And also that you need to be careful about the specific types of tasks that you ask it to do, because you may not want it going out and having unfettered access to all of the internet, for example. So that's kind of where the guardrails pieces of these large generative models come into play. So yeah, it's a very, very exciting technology. I think that it has a lot of room to grow. For longer, more complex tasks, if you think of saying, I want to buy tickets to go to Finland when the weather is good, or something like that. Like that could be something where you break that down into tasks. So check for airline prices for Finland, check to see when the weather is nice in Finland in general. So those are two distinct bits of information that you would want to need to do that. So maybe you could have AutoGPT like handle a simplistic task like that. But then when you actually go to buy the tickets, do you really want Do you really want a conversational agent like this having access to your credit card information, your banking information? So I think that there's definitely a lot of guardrails to put in place. And anytime you get beyond a task as kind of straightforward as that, when you start to break it down into the smaller bits and pieces that make up that more complex process, that's where some of these generative agents can have a little bit of trouble, because if you get one of the steps wrong, kind of the whole house of cards can crumble.
Hmm. Amazing. Still, it is evolving, and we still need more advanced models, I believe, to be, ChatGPT or any other AI tool to be, completely on their own, not operated by external agent or whatsoever. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, how do you see the AutoGPT fitting into the larger landscape of artificial intelligence and machine learning technology, especially the opportunities if we talk about?
Yeah, so I think technologies like AutoGPT, so some sort of a generative agent, they're really, really interesting, and I think that they have a lot of really, really interesting use cases, and they can potentially be valuable. There's very, very interesting research even coming out of like Stanford and Google around just taking a whole bunch of generative agents and like letting them talk to each other, just saying like y'all can talk to each other. You can think that they put it together in a game scenario. So they could go to their house, they could eat, they could go to work, all of these things, and just like watch them all interact for like a week. So there's actually really, really like novel research that can be tapped into for these types of generative agents. I think from a practical standpoint, in terms of like business opportunity, there are probably a huge, huge host of tasks for which we maybe ask our digital assistants to do things today, like pick your Apple or your Google or whatever assistant, that I would probably argue are leaving a lot on the table in terms of like customer experience and just ability to do things. So I could see a huge market there for those types of systems, just being way more robust on the back end. And if you think like once you gain consumer trust in, like, I mean, people already order Amazon groceries with their Amazon, voice assistant of choice. It isn't a huge leap to, once we have comfort in this technology, that it's not going to go and buy the wrong thing, that we could eventually have these generative agents assisting in areas like that.
Amazing. So I was talking to one of our guests who came to podcast, and he told me, and it was very interesting to know that they have automated their customer support uh, on the whole AI model, and it was like quite new for me in a way that they had. He said that they had scored 3 in customer success. But now, due to prompt response of AI and other tools they are using, they have scored 7 out of 10. And I was like pretty amazed that how this new type of technology can assess our emotions and can give prompt response in regards to every situation.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that what you just identified there is a really interesting use case, because I would I bet it would be difficult to argue that ChatGPT or a generative model provides a far superior user experience to having an actual agent there, like servicing the customer's account, for example. But the friction for that particular customer service use case more comes from the time to response, right? So if you can get something that's like workable as quick as possible, then you can have a huge impact. And before, like, the alternative to that is like maybe you stood up a conversational AI system 5 years ago. There's no comparison between what we had in terms of conversational AI maybe 5 years ago and what we have access to today. The key though is just making sure that you can properly police it and keep it on the keep guardrails in place to make sure that it doesn't say anything that is outside of your customer facing voice, for example.
Yeah. Yeah, we have to keep guards. You're totally right in that. And earlier, when you're talking about how it is opening opportunities for businesses, I also want to tap in that area. I know businesses are taking ChatGPT in their, automation in automating their tasks, in writing content, etc. But how can the further development and integration of tools like AutoGPT change the way businesses or startups approach the automation and productivity?
Yeah, I see the value proposition specifically for AutoGPT for some of these startups to be potentially very high, but also to have very high associated risk. So I would see a lot of companies probably building systems that have baked in guardrails and are similar to the way that AutoGPT maybe kind of generates its own script, but maybe you're providing the script of all of the steps that need to be carried out. So I see like an intermediate point before we get to full things like AutoGPT, where we're specifying more directly what the actual generative agents are doing, and then checking the results on each step to make sure that it's doing the correct thing. And that feels like a more solid foundation on which you could build a business. But that being said, there's a lot of different execution and operating modes for these generative models. And I mean, the sky's really the limit with how you can chain them together to do really, really complex tasks. Again, in my mind, like until it, even just using general agents the generative agents in the back end of any system, that still feels slightly risky to me. And I think that I don't know, it's kind of the Wild West out there, and it's really, really exciting. But I'll be interested to see, what startups based on this technology really rise up, and what ones don't quite make it, and why they don't make it.
Yeah, why don't they make it? I was reading it somewhere that now there's a competition between people who are going to adopt AI and the people who are not going to adopt AI in a very fine way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, you're always going to have people that are either afraid of new technology or just don't believe it lives up to the hype. I think for the first time in my life, I think that this particular technology, or at least for the first time in my career, this particular technology, the hype, I think, is warranted. I don't know if all of the hype is warranted, but it's very, very impressive what these large generative models can do. And it really has been kind of a renaissance just over like the past 6 months, over such a short time period, in terms of the spotlight on this type of these type of capabilities, and just them, like the demonstrations of what they can do. So I'm excited for what's to come, but yeah, I think that it's okay to be cautious about these technologies, because they're not the saviors. They're not like the be all end all everything. So yeah, interested to see what comes next.
Yeah, it is pretty exciting in this whole scenario and the landscape, that what is going to happen next, whether we are going to have, ChatGPT 5 coming on, or, the advanced models. And you are completely right that in the matter of months, this technology has like evolved very fastly in a very sufficient manner. So, keeping that in mind, my next question is about uh, again AutoGPT. That what is the potential for AutoGPT to continue evolving and improving in the future? Do you see any, that AutoGPT can evolve and it can improve more and make our work more efficient? Or what are the advancements as a whole we can expect in your experience in this whole AI world, I would say, we are living in?
Yeah. So I think AutoGPT right now is kind of an experimental project, I would say. And I think it'll be really, really interesting to see how the actual project itself develops. But I would see a lot of larger organizations doing a lot of the same things that AutoGPT is demonstrating in their product, in their own bespoke ways behind the scenes. And I think that I already identified a couple of use cases where you may do online shopping or something like that. Or maybe we just totally change up the way that you interact with your car. There are a whole bunch of different areas where this stuff can be applied. And I think that my sense is that a lot of companies are going to start doing this or are already doing some things in a similar vein to AutoGPT behind the scenes. And I think that that's only going to accelerate now that kind of the curtain has been pulled a bit, and you can see behind the scenes with, what some of the crazy stuff that you can do with these types of generative agents are.
Amazing. We are going to see some crazy stuff out there. And I think, yeah, it's going to be pretty exciting because I think we are moving into a new era where, machine came in and we were scared about our jobs. But now there's automation and now we are scared about our jobs. But I think the best part of being a human that we adopt with the coming technologies and we continue our work, and no matter what, we are needed because we are the ones who are developing these technologies. So thank you so much, Zach, for being with us. I really enjoyed our conversation into AutoGPT and how you explained that what AutoGPT is, how it is now in experimental phase, but we can expect it to be more advanced. And thank you so much. It was an honor having you with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure chatting with you today.
Thank you so much.
Great.